Okay, so welcome everyone for this session of KashfIniative. And today we are going to talk about exploring pathways in research. What are the prospects? What are the possibilities of research? It's a very interesting session we have had here. People has asked us about how to conduct what are the pathways in research and what should we do about it. So that's why we have kept this session here in this lineup. Next, we are going to talk about what is the structure of this session. So first thing, we'll talk a little bit about the KashfIniative. What is it? What we are trying to do here? And then I'll introduce our wonderful set of panelists here. Thank you them for joining us here. Already they are joined us here. And then we're going to talk about what are the research pathways that we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on only three things for today. Academic pathways, there are two things in there. A PhD pathway and a master's by research pathway. And then we're going to talk about non-academic pathways as well, which is to how you can make a career in social science without doing a PhD in the first place. And then we'll open the session for a Q&A. You can talk your questions to our panelists, to us, and we'll try to resolve it as much as possible. About our initiative, about KashfIniative, we are a non-profit organization. It's a volunteer organization. We are dedicated to support research and learning in social sciences and humanities. We work on a very simple idea. We try to pass on the learnings, the knowledge that we have learned in India or outside India so far in humanities and social sciences, or things that we are trying to learn, and or the things we wish that we had learned sooner into our academic journey. We are trying to pass on to other people who would probably benefit from it a bit. Our goal is simply to make the research process easier, smoother, accessible for everyone, and trying to make foundational basic training in research as much accessible as possible. So to achieve this plan, we offer sessions on research writing, we offer sessions on research methodology, we offer on research tools as well. Also trying to create spaces where you can review your work, you can showcase your work and connect with other people who are working on in social sciences and humanities. So you can visit our website if you want more information. You can also follow us on social media so that you can have more update about our sessions. With this, I think it's time to introduce our panelists who have graciously joined us today. We have Nicole with us, Nicole Thomas. Nicole is a PhD researcher. He is a PhD scholar in legal studies at Ambedkar University, Delhi. We have Sameera with us. Sameera is a master's by research student in sociology at IIT Bombay. And we have Anandita with us. And Anandita was an analyst at IDSA, Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. So that's our wonderful panel for you guys today. And with this, we will move ahead to our session of the day, introducing the research pathways and what do we mean by research pathways. So in this, we are going to talk about what is the possibilities of career, how do you make sense of humanities and research and social sciences, and what kind of careers can be there. Like we all are familiar that engineers are there, they do B.Tech and they can do other things, but what do you do when you are doing studying social sciences? So you can choose different pathways in research. It often depends on your interests, what are your career goals, but also what are the resources available and what are the resources that are accessible to us. So in this presentation, we are going to explore different approaches, different opportunities, and how you can probably work on a video specific focus on either an academic degree or probably a non-academic pathway to start your career in humanities or social sciences, sorry. So with that, I am going to hand over to Nicole, who's going to talk about the PhD pathways specifically, and then over to you, Nicole, please.
Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah, okay, chill.
You're perfectly audible.
Yeah. So my name is Nicole. I'm a first year PhD student, and let's just dive right in. So what is a PhD? Basics. It is an advanced research degree generally like a minimum of 3 years, and you have a big thesis, like an end product. So it's like original research, uh, and um, now now what is a good PhD? So I mean, a good PhD is a completed PhD, right? Now, this is a proverb that my department, which is Law and Governance at Ambedkar, this is a proverb that we have. Now, why do we say like a good PhD, like any completed PhD is good? Because a lot of people start PhDs, and a lot of people do not complete it. So the first thing for a good PhD is a completed PhD. Now, when a PhD is a very solitary, like you are alone during your PhD for most of the time, and your supervisor is your primary point of contact, is going to play a big role, and your relationship with the supervisor will determine how your PhD goes. Yeah. Now, types of PhD, I've divided into roughly two kinds. Now, the first one is something that's researcher-led. The topic is it's your idea, it's your topic. You've started the PhD with a research proposal that you've created. Well, the second one is something that is a supervisor-led one, where it's common to see supervisors, they'll send out a job, like job vacancies, PhD vacancies, and they'll say this is the topic that we are working on, and we want you to join our team so that we can like finish this, like this complete this PhD project. So the first one is something that's is something that you do, and or you are creating the idea, while the second one is you're basically facilitating some like a larger research team's idea. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Now, a PhD is extremely specialized, it requires a lot of investment. Now, because it requires a lot of investment, you need to have a good idea why you're doing this. Now, first, a good starting point is to discuss it with people. Like, you tell people, oh, I am planning to do a PhD. And then when somebody asks, like, why you're doing it, then you should be having a good explanation or good reasons for why you're doing it. Now, some things that you can consider as PhD is significant opportunity cost. So opportunity cost, basically, if you're doing something, the opportunity cost of doing that is basically all the other things that you could have done with when you're doing this thing. Yeah. Now, in terms of time, there's like you're going to be spending significant amounts of time doing the PhD. So, and in terms of money, like you could have been earning a lot while you were doing this PhD. Now, for example, let's say 5-year PhD could have been 5 years of job experience or 5 years worth of salary. Now, PhD is extremely helpful if you're looking for a job in research fields or academia. Yeah. Extremely research-oriented fields. I mean, like I said, PhD is a research degree. So it is very important if you're going into a research field or academia. Now, job prospects, because it is a very specialized field, there are not a lot of jobs out there. Now, I don't want anyone to think that let's do a PhD because there are a lot of jobs going out there. A PhD is very specialized. You don't necessarily need this much specialization for getting jobs. So a PhD, you would have noticed a lot of news articles which say PhD chaiwala and all. It is a very real possibility. So I just need you to understand that there is a possibility that jobs might be a bit difficult. Now, keeping jobs and money aside, PhD can be an incredible experience, like an incredible intellectual experience. Yeah, and the results that you will get from it will really help increase the stock of social knowledge out there. Yeah. Uh, Lastly, if the doctor tag matters to you, helps. Next slide. Okay, so a tentative PhD timeline. So this is basically for an India PhD. Yeah. Now, year one, most places in India will have coursework. Basically, like MA level courses that you will be doing, and you'll be getting some credits, and then you move on, you pass them, and then you move on to the next stage of the PhD. Year two is basically a synopsis defense. So it's a synopsis defense, basically your final research proposal is being presented and then it's being approved for future study. In year two itself, you would start data collection for your research. You would also start writing. You should ideally start writing from year two onwards. Yeah. Year three would mostly be spent up writing. Like I said, that's 80,000 words. 80,000 words is around 300 to 320 pages of double spaced writing, which is a lot of words. Yeah. Year four will mostly go away like in submission formalities. In my institute, like you submit it and like your thesis submission, your viva, all of these things could take easily 6 months. Yeah. So then, I mean, it could easily go on to year five, could go on to year six. Once you reach year seven, initially you might think, okay, this is not a great idea. This is not a great PhD if this is going to go into year seven. Uh, with, like I said, a PhD is extremely difficult. It's long and it's completely fine if it takes year seven or year eight. That's fine. Like I said, the proverb, a good PhD is a completed PhD. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Yeah. You publish, it's important to publish during the PhD, attend conference papers, like, get articles, etc. And also, once you have a PhD, you can actually plan on like a publishing or like a book or like a big book out of it. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so PhD admissions, so net JRF, so this is basically specific for India PhDs. We have a slide on PhDs outside India, which we have not shared because of time constraints. So we're putting this, putting information on outside PhDs on the chat box. Yeah. Now, for India PhDs, you would have heard about this exam called UGC Net JRF. It is something it's an exam conducted by the NTA, and it is extremely important because the scores that you get in this exam will be a major component of your PhD admission. Yeah. So net JRF is basically two papers, paper one and paper two. Paper one, I think 50 questions, paper two is 100 questions. Now, paper one is basically um, common thing, like common, paper one is common to every net JRF subject. Paper two is specific to particular net JRF subjects. Now, in paper one, you have like math, quantitative. So you got mathematics, you got English, you got research aptitude, and you got a bit of general knowledge. Yeah. Uh, that it is quite important because it can determine like how well you do in the overall ranking. So it's an important source of differential compared to, so it gives you a big opportunity to differentiate yourself in a competitive exam. Because a lot of people, I think it's a funny joke, like, but it's true. Like a lot of people actually struggle with paper one. So if you manage to do well in paper one, that's an easy way to score good marks and your score will be competitive. For a lot of people who are scared of math, do not worry. Math in a UGC Net JRF is not very difficult. The only thing you'll need a good teacher. Like if somebody can explain it to you well, you will be completely fine. Paper one can be quickly brushed up, whereas paper two is something that you need to put time in. So let's say if you're in a time crunch, if you don't have a lot of time with you, focus on paper one, because paper one, like, if you put some time into math, you will see the immediate results then and there. Paper two is something that you need to read a lot and take your time. Now, NetJRF in paper two, NetJRF is not a well-designed um, exam. There are a lot of criticisms. It's MCQs, it's multiple choice questions for descriptive subjects. Uh, Now, but what what a big issue with the paper two is, like, there's a lot of randomness involved. Like, it's a vast syllabus. It's quite random. So what we can do is basically is try and, like, come up with strategies to deal with this randomness. And one is like intelligent guesswork. Even if you might not know the actual answer, but you might have clues about different options. What could be, maybe not this, maybe not this. You can actually, because there's no negative marking in the exam, you can actually um, do some intelligent guesswork and make a good informed guess. Yeah. Now, next slide. Um, Once you're done with your entrance exam, your research proposal plays a big role. So a research proposal is basically your plan for conducting research that you would be presenting, like you'll be presenting to the interview board. Now this is basically, this slide, my information I've taken from the PhD bulletin of Ambedkar University, shows what a research proposal is like. Has to have a clear argument, a literature survey, research questions, has to be original work, no AI. And you will be showing this research proposal, you'll be presenting it to the interview board. Another thing that you can also do is align your research proposal with faculty interest. You can look at, okay, when you can look at the different faculty of the department and what they're interested in, and it helps to know what they're interested. So you can also, when you're preparing for your interview, you will know which faculty is interested in this, which faculty would most likely be your supervisor. So all this information helps, helps make a good interview. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. So in an interview, first thing is trust yourself. If you've reached an interview, that means you're a great candidate. Yeah. So, like, be very confident. Practice your interview with friends, teachers, and even family also. It's quite interesting because if you can explain what your research proposal is going to be about to a member of your family who is not accustomed to like research ideas, if you can explain it to them clearly in simple language, you'll do really well in your PPT. No, sorry, in your interview. Yeah. Don't use AI for your research proposal. It's incredibly easy to pick it if you've used it. Faculty members can be snobs or can be a bit judgmental. So if they see that this you have used AI, then they can be a bit like a bit more like critical in the interview. The research proposal is your Bible or your Gita. It's extremely important. I mean, that's the single most important document in that interview, or most of your questions will be coming out of your research proposal. So you should know it ideally like the back of your hand. Um, your research question should be something that should sustain your intellectual curiosity for 4 to 5, 6 years. When you've come up with a research question, first thing should be, can this sustain my curiosity? Can I continue with this for 5 years? Yeah. Do not, in an interview, like in all other job interviews, do not lie. They can people can easily catch out if you're trying to fake it. So let's not do that. Now, the only exception is basically when they are trying to ascertain if you're a serious PhD student. They'll say like, are you going to be continuing in the PhD? Is this your first priority? And when they ask questions like that, they're trying to gauge whether you're going to be a serious PhD student. Like there are a lot of people do PhDs for a lot of different reasons. Um, Sometimes, I mean, you might be doing a PhD and on the side, you might be doing competitive exams, which is completely fine. It's just that if you tell them that you're going to be doing competitive exams on the side, they might not take you for their PhD position. Now, lastly, look at the interview as a way of assessing the department. If you have a good experience on the interview, then chances are you've landed at a good department. If they are giving you ideas, if they are giving you like if they are they're giving you constructive criticism, that means that it shows that this is a good department to do your PhD in. Next slide. Yeah, so next part two is basically things I wish someone told me about in my PhD admission. Next slide. Yeah, so like I said, do a lot of planning, think about why you want to do a PhD, talk to a lot of people, discuss your plans. The thing about discussion is like when you discuss plans, you get a lot of clarity about why you're doing it, and you can also avoid a lot of mistakes. Um, PhD admissions are a probability game, like, you can increase your probability of getting into your dream PhD by good preparation and research. Yeah. Start early to give yourself the best chance. So what ideally, like, apply for PhDs within India, apply for PhDs outside India. The entire process is time consuming. So you start early, start maybe like a 6 months to 1 year ahead of your PhD applications. Read all documents carefully. Um, like admission formalities, the weightage for particular score, how an interview is going to be conducted, all these things. Because if you read them carefully, then you will not end up making a mistake at some later point of time. Yeah. Next slide. Let's talk practical stuff. Yeah. So finances. I mean, a PhD, when you take the decision to do a PhD, this is for 3 to 5 years, you need to have money to do this PhD. You're basically studying, so somebody has to be giving you money for doing this study. Yeah. So JRF, so if you have a JRF, so a JRF is basically it's a fellowship that the government of India gives you to do PhDs or to do an MPhil. Yeah. So if you have funding like that, that's great. Some institutes also give you funding. I know IITs give a lot of money. So IITs, so which means like it's not a bad idea to to do a PhD in IITs because your funding is sorted. Job prospects, like I said, there are not a lot of post PhD jobs. So so when you're choosing institutes, look at the branding of the institute, the networks, like the who are the people who work there, etc. All of this can really help with your job prospects. Um, Interdisciplinarity, something related to job prospects. So interdisciplinarity is basically you're going to be when you're working in fields where multiple disciplines are like integrated. So for example, let's say development studies is an interdisciplinary subject. We're looking at the problem of development from different disciplinary perspectives. Now, the issue with interdisciplinarity, it is great, it is at the cutting edge of research, but there's not a lot of jobs in interdisciplinary subjects. There's a lot of gatekeeping. For example, I have a master's in an interdisciplinary subject, and I tried to teach in Delhi University. So my JRF is in political science. I scored in the 100th percentile, but DU told me I cannot teach because I have not done a master's in political science, which is a core discipline and not an interdisciplinary subject. Uh, Bad assumptions. So one example of a bad assumption that I had when I was doing my PhD admissions is basically I was obsessed with getting a PhD outside. Yeah, I was like, no, let's not. Um, so now because of which uh, I made some terrible decisions. Now the thing is, um, well, most important thing is your work ethic and your supervisor and funding. So if you have all these three things, then um, you should start a PhD as soon as possible. Um, Now, one way to not have such bad assumption is basically when you discuss it with people. So if you have a bad assumption when you're talking about it with people, they tell you that, oh, I don't think this assumption is right. This need not hold true. So talk to people a lot. Which next slide, which moves on to the next slide, is in networking. It's probably the most important skill in any career. Um, More than hard work, you need to show that you've done the hard work. A big example is in 1913, you had Mr. S. Ramanujan, great mathematician. He was working as a clerk and he had sent a career altering letter to Dr. G.H. Hardy at the University of Cambridge. So his career took off because of this one act of networking. Yeah. Now, networking is a game of social privilege, and you need a lot of access. Now, it is not fairly distributed. Not everybody has the same amount of class and caste capital, which is fine. Don't worry, even if you do not have such privilege or confidence. What you can do is be proactive, talk to people, ask for help, put yourself out there. A lot of people are there to help you. Uh, Understanding the importance of confidence and soft skills, because that plays a big role in your networking, and such networking really will help in the admission process, will also help in your larger career afterwards. Yeah, thank you. Moving on.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Nicole, for that extremely honest presentation and letting everybody know what a PhD is about. One thing that I found really interesting from Nicole's presentation was a good PhD is always a complete PhD. So whenever you think of starting a PhD, you always like it's very important that yeah you end up finishing it, and it sometimes becomes very difficult, but that's the way it is. And I think one more thing I want to add about the writing aspect that Nicole talked about. It's very important that because you have to write a lot. It's 80,000 word thesis. It can become longer as well. So writing is very important, and like it's not that you will produce the best writing out there, and your own writing will be you like it. That's not going to happen. People like they finish their PhD, so they end up not liking their thesis. So it's best that you start writing as early as possible when you start a PhD. It might not go in a final draft, but it's always best to start writing as a practice of writing itself. So with that, we thank Nicole for this presentation, and now we will move to Sameera. Welcome, Sameera. Please go ahead. Now over to you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I'm Sameera. As already introduced, I have a master's in sociology from IIT Bombay. So, good evening, everyone. So, I'm going to speak about three important things. I will briefly talk about what is a master's by research program, and also how to get into this course at IIT Bombay. And thirdly, I would also elucidate my experience in pursuing Masters by Research at IIT Bombay. So, what is an MRes program? Maybe if you really want to pursue a PhD or not, MRes program would really let you understand what are the depths of research or what really a PhD requires. So basically, an MRes program is a research-oriented program that lets you push push oppose you to do a PhD. Um, it basically also prepares you for research skills uh, that are usually required for a humanities or a social science research. Initially, MRes program was a master in philosophy program, but got substituted by the new education policy, and it could act as a bridge for between the master's degree and the PhD. But this program has been open, is open also for the bachelor students who have a 4 years degree. So next slide, please. So the key features of our MRes program could be either 1 or 2 years. In most of the foreign universities, you might be doing it for a 1 year, but I did a MRes program that is for 2 years. You usually, in this research degree, you are acquainted with a lot of interdisciplinary skills uh, that could not just confine to specific social sciences, but also could include humanities or engineering or science. For instance, I had courses from urban sciences, or you could also do courses from linguistics or performance studies, even though you are not a humanities or a literature student. So, yeah, um, next slide, please. So, a brief, orientation of how you could get into an MRes program. Right now, you have an MA research program only in IIT Bombay, but there are other MA degrees that are offered by IITs, which are gender studies or development studies. In order to get into an MRes program into IIT Bombay, you need to give an exam called GATE, which is initially an examination that was confined to engineering students or the sciences background, but it has been expanded to the social sciences candidates from 2021. So it's an exam for 100 marks, and it's 3 hours, and you have two papers. One is the general aptitude, which is a common paper for both the sciences, engineering, and social sciences background, whereas coming to a specific humanities paper, it is divided into two sections. One is the compulsory reasoning and comprehension. Another one is the specific subject that you choose, which could be either economics, English, linguistics, philosophy, or psychology or sociology. So the exam is basically very conceptual and applicative in nature when it comes to your own theoretical discipline that comes. For example, when I've given the exam in sociology, most of the questions were applicative in nature, which is distinct from UGC NET. And there were three types of questions. Basically, it was MCQs. Then you had multiple MSQs and NATs, which you'll get to know more about it when you go through the information brochure. So the dates are also important for this exam because the notification releases in the month of August, and you have to register by October because your exam will be in Feb and your result will be released in March. That's when you can apply for IT Bombay when your scorecards release in April. Next slide, please. So why GATE is important is because uh, the IIT Bombay has made it uh, an, an eligibility criteria to apply for the program itself. And one has to write GATE and have to have a minimum GATE score of 200 or above. Um, a candidate with either 3 or 4 year bachelor's degree or an earlier master's can apply for the program. So this just qualifying GATE makes you eligible for the MAT exam, which is the MA by Research admission test that is conducted by IIT Bombay. And a MAT written exam is a pen and paper based exam, which consists a passage or two that needs to be critically read and answered. You need to write short and crisp answers which are grammatically correct. Um, and the questions are directed in such a way where you have to write short answers, long answers, and essay type. You could get sample question papers in the website in itself. Then, after writing your written exam, after 2 or 3 days, you will be called for an interview where the HSS department professors will interview on what are your research interests, what was your previous academic background, and why are you choosing this course. They might also ask you a bit of conceptual and subject specific questions related to your GATE or your previous bachelor's, and what are your future research interests and queries. So after the interview, the final selection to the program will be based on the combined marks of your GATE, math, and interview scores, which have a specific percentages mentioned in the brochure. So next slide, please. So the course details is that this course actually might let you know whether you want to pursue a PhD or not at all, because it gives you an orientation and also acquaints you with the culture of research in social sciences and humanities. And the MRes program at IIT Bombay gives you three different kinds of specialization. They've introduced new program called Human Sciences, which is a intersection between both humanities and social sciences. Another one is linguistics, literature, and performance, where mostly people who have a literature background, either masters or a bachelor's in literature, tend to prefer this course. And another third specialization is sociology, which I did. And this course also allocates a specific faculty supervisor and a research panel, which I will be talking further. And also this course, when you once you qualify for this course, you will be getting a teaching assistantship with a stipend of rupees 12,000 per month, which is not a very burdensome job role, except that you are allocated to few teaching courses where you have to assist the professors who are teaching the courses at the campus. Next slide, please. So about the course structure, why I would like to mention about the course structure in itself is because uh, it's a the semesters in itself are demarcated into various stages that let you know how research works. For instance, in the semester one, you have compulsory courses and a common courses where you are acquainted with the courses from linguistics, history, literature, and sociology. And you are also taught four methodology courses, which are qualitative methods, um, various research methods used for history, and you are also acquainted with critical reading and expository writing. So after the semester one, you get into semester two, which where you need to make important decisions as a student. You need to be choosing one of the three specializations after whatever specialization interests you, according to the courses that you have been acquainted with or you have taken across the first semester. Then you also need to make a decision between if you want to write a thesis or a research project for the next two semesters. Uh, Generally, masters students with previous masters are allowed to do a thesis or a research project, whereas a bachelor students have to do only research project but not the thesis. Another decision that you have to make it in semester two was you need to be choosing a supervisor and a panel. It is during this semester where you will also be communicating with a lot of professors to understand or put up your own research interests. This is where I'm interested in. Then the supervisor would communicate back with you whether I really want to supervise you for this research project or not. Um, Next, in the semester, you will also be having some compulsory courses according to the specialization you choose. And you also need to be presenting a research proposal in this semester. So this is the first stage of how you are also made to be aware about how a research proposal is crafted. Whereas the next semester 3 and 4 are very similar. Whatever you have proposed in the semester two, you will be working on it, and along with it, uh, people who have chosen research projects need to do two courses, whereas people who have chosen thesis wouldn't need to do any compulsory coursework. And at the end of each semester, they would be presenting their stage one and stage two work as seminars. Next slide, please. So yeah, how do you get to how are your research projects or theses evaluated? So as I told you, in the semester two, you tend to communicate with your supervisor about your research interests. Um, and you write a rough draft proposal, and sending that rough draft proposal to your probable professors that you are interested for them to supervise. And you tend to once you fix your supervisor, you tend to schedule meetings with your supervisor to improve the proposal, and you begin the process of writing. Um, then for the each semester 2 and 3, you're given 5 months for each semester stage. Um, and every presentation for every stage, you will be sending your first draft to the supervisor, and supervisor will be tending to give you comments or limitations of your work where you need to be improving on. And the final draft would be sent to the panel that you have chosen, which consists of a chairperson and an examiner, 15 days prior to the presentation. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that the research project includes like you have to write around 5K to 600 words, whereas for theses you have to write around 12,000 words. On the day of seminar, you tend to present your work, which is open to everyone, and you will be getting comments from your panel, and you will be incorporating comments and submit it later. Next slide, please. So, how could this course actually make you ready for a PhD, or even get into the or whether you are really interested to do a PhD or not? Because you will learn how to write a research proposal, which is the basic skill. One of the course that we did specifically focused on how could we write a research proposal. And as the process, as you communicate with your supervisor and the panel and the other professors, you tend to streamline your proposed research questions and make it sharper at each stage. And the two seminar presentations that you do at the at the campus helps you to improve on comments and critique because your work is open to everyone, and it also allows you to expand your methodology if there are any limitations. For instance, where I could incorporate various methodology. For instance, I doing sociology, I didn't just confine myself to a qualitative method, but I also use archival method with the coursework that has been taught to me. And also you are introduced to a culture of you know uh, a culture of social science academic research, where you get the liberty to visit a season of annual progress seminars by other PhD students, where discussion of their work helps you to understand how PhD works. And you could also network with a lot of professors and take inputs. And you could also acquaint oneself with official processes like fieldwork expenses are usually covered by the institute. You could learn how permission letters be written to authorities to access archives or interviews to be taken. For people with who research on sensitive subjects are necessarily needed to take an ethics approval committee, undergo an ethics approval committee process. And for people who are doing theses, are also made to choose an external examiner for their thesis presentation from outside the institute. And possibly, if your work is good enough, you could develop it into a paper, and with the help of professors, you could publish it in the journal. Yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sameera, for that presentation and for the audience. I even didn't know much about MRes, so thank you so much for presenting it in such detail, great detail. Thank you so much. So with this, we are going to move over to our non-academic pathways. Maybe you guys have heard enough about how you can work in academia. Maybe you can work outside academia. For that, I would want to invite Anandita for this session. And please, Anandita, over to you now.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Am I audible? Kanchan, if you can please confirm.
Yeah, you're audible to me perfectly.
So I'm essentially looking at sharing my own experience, which was 3.25 of a year at IDSA, Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. and I worked there as a research analyst. And before that, I mean, since we've spoken so much about PhD, I did my master's, then I joined the PhD program, and then I left the PhD program because I realized in a way that I wasn't really cut out for it. So, like Nicole was saying in the presentation, that you always should know as to why you're joining a PhD. And I absolutely agree, because like the two main reasons why I joined the PhD was, one, there's a word in Hindi called bhid chal. Everybody around you is doing it. So at times it gets so much that you think that you want to do it, and you only realize it much later on when you go into the program that you thought you wanted to do it and this was made for you, but when you do it you realize that that wasn't the case. And that is something that happened with me, because after masters I was like, of course, what else, everybody around me is doing PhD and I should also go at least give the entrance. And when I gave the entrance, was my second reason for why I took a PhD, is I got through the entrance. Then, like, if I can use a common word, there's an add-on guilt, only limited people get it. You got the opportunity. Do you really want to just throw it all away? And everybody around you would obviously be like, if it's a prestigious institute, in my case, it was JNU. So everybody said there are limited seats and you got in, and what are you even thinking, But I was like, okay, maybe everybody's right. And I went ahead and I tried being there for like a bit of a while. I did the coursework. I started with the PhD part, but I just wasn't getting the kick. Like, I didn't have fun doing it. So eventually I left it when I got the job at IDSA. But being very honest, the job at IDSA was really only a bahana for me to like just leave the PhD, because I had zero guilt. I felt absolutely amazing, with all the burden off my shoulders when I left it. And that's when I realized that it's not really meant for me. So leaving it also, I mean, just because you've gotten the admission, you shouldn't force yourself to go ahead. You should honestly think it through if you really want to do it. While I was there, people had said, like, and these are lines I'm quoting from my friends and, researchers at the university, who said, PhD is like a choti moti shadi. You have to be very clear that you want to do it. And you have to be certain that this is the topic I want to stick with. Many a times people switch their topics, but just to get a particular supervisor. But it's the topic you're going to work on. So you should really be very clear if you want to work on that particular topic for 5 to 7 years. And again, I'm going to say, like Nicole said, the doctor tag. I mean, I really like that line. So if the doctor tag matters to you, but having worked 3 years or so at IDSA and being in the research space, actually in the policy space, it made me realize that it doesn't matter if the tag of doctor matters to you or not, but the tag of doctor is going to matter to your fellow researchers. Because when they see Dr. XYZ, they already assume that you've gone through a process, you're good at it, you're meant for it. And just because you don't have a tag, a lot of people assumed that this is something that you are not very sure of and you're still finding your waters. But that's not the case, because I've seen people who are very brilliant at research and writing like policy papers, but they don't have a PhD, And because PhD as a trend has picked up now, it wasn't so much of a common thing 10 years before or even back then. So we have a couple of senior researchers, they don't have a PhD, but they're brilliant. And we have quite a lot of young population who have the PhD, but I'm sorry to say they do not live up to the doctor tag. So this is coming out of my experience. And at IDSA, if I was to say specifically, say it's a government, it's actually an autonomous think tank which is affiliated with the Defense Ministry, but its decisions, everything is autonomous in a way. Its functioning is autonomous. So in that kind of a space, and while I was there, it was also the G20 year. So there was a lot of collaboration, as Think 20 was a segment of our G20 India. And in that, I got to interact with people from across different think tanks of India and abroad. And in that, I realized that there are a couple of things. Being in a think tank is a learning experience, because when you're at an academic space, a university, you're speaking and you're reading and you're in a very theoretical mindset. But when you come out of that space, say to work in a think tank or to work at a different space, an NGO or anywhere, you realize that you have your theory, you have your knowledge. But the important part is to be able to apply that. And that is where I think being in a non-academic space, frankly speaking, or being in a policy space really makes you understand how you can apply that knowledge which you've accumulated in the university. So you have to kind of switch the way you write, you have to kind of switch your words a little bit. I mean, you've done that theory of realism, right? When you're doing IR. And when you're writing a paper on, say, India and US, you are using the theory of IR, but your statements are not going to be as the scholar said and what the scholar said. You're going to have to implement that saying in an actual incident which happened, or a meeting which happened or did not happen, and what we're looking at. So along with your theoretical base, you have to have a futuristic outlook. You have to have the skill to be able to analyze that if such an incident happened or did not happen, what are the possible repercussions? And not only possible, what are the possible practical repercussions? Because you have to realize in IR, a lot of things are possible, but only a couple of them are actually practically going to happen. So this is something that I realized while I was there at IDSA, and I learned how to write articles from a policy perspective, not only from a solely academic perspective. We had a range. You could write a commentary, 1,200 words. You could write issue brief, 3,000 words. That's deeper analysis. You could write a backgrounder piece, which is essentially saying that you could give a relatively less analytical and a little more of the data aspect. Piece would be, say, around 3,000 to 3,500 words. But it is explanatory in nature, not so much of an analytical piece. Then, amongst other things, policy space also gives you that additional advantage or time, if you're able to make it, to be able to write in newspapers, on online news sites, and there are a lot of possibilities of you being able to put out your work. You get to interact with so many other platforms and people that you realize that research करने के कई तरीके हैं. It doesn't have to be a particular paper in your university or on your institutional website. There can be a couple of other ways. So before I go on to discuss the couple other ways, just 3 quick points. As a research analyst, we had to write reports of meetings that took place. We had to help in organizing and also taking part in conferences. And here I have to say, like the doctor tag or having a PhD, essentially, it is, I feel, kind of important when in a long run, if you want to stay in research for your own internal promotions in an institute, it's important for your market value as a researcher. And it's also important because when conferences are happening, I've seen that people tend to give preference to those who have a doctorate. Those people are given preference on presenting their papers, etc. So there is a lot of preference that is given to PhDs. So it's important in a field of research that you have a PhD. But if we are talking about non-academic aspects, like think tank, I've already discussed my own experience. Then there are ministries, and in different ministries like Home Ministry, MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, and other ministries, they have something called as consultant positions. Those are also broadly about doing research on the particular theme or the project that the ministry is that time focusing on. Along with that, organizing conferences and collaboration with other institutes, etc. So there's a lot of exposure. There are lots of things to learn. And as it was said earlier in one of the presentations, that networking is super important. It doesn't matter what field of research or other field of profession you're in, networking is something that's going to get you far. Second aspect of non-academic research could be, say, in the corporates. Like there is Genpact, there's Deloitte. There are very many multinational organizations which also have a research wing, because these institutes, these corporates, they have a CSR, corporate social responsibility. So many a times they are undertaking certain research projects. So they say, we will put our people, we will do the research, and we'll give that data to the government. That's how they're doing their that's how they're fulfilling the social responsibility. So in that also they require researchers. There are many times their projects can be either case-based or they want like a broad market analysis, that somebody is sitting and doing a market research. As and when they need the data, they approach the person. What has your data been like? We need it for our further analysis. There are NGOs in which there are different branches of the UN which are focused on doing groundwork research, data collection. There are project-based again, and like there are freelancers also. Say government comes out with certain projects before coming out with social policies. Those projects are given across either to NGOs or to organizations, and they have to do like a detailed research groundwork and give a report to the ministry, based on which the ministry comes out with its social policy, how to do it, or which area to focus on, and all of that. So usme bhi you have various organizations which are doing this kind of freelancing research. Then another aspect comes as media, which is, like I said, it's a research op-ed kind of article that we find in the newspaper, or it's an everyday news. Even if you're a journalist, you have to do your research to be able to, if it's TV or paper, either ways, you have to have your research sorted before you write that particular news piece or before you present that particular news on the television. And the last segment that I have found non-academic research is also political. Many political parties, after Prashant Kishore picked up and he was helping BJP with their campaign when BJP hit like a major win a couple of years back. After that, there's this new trend of political parties having consultancies which are helping them conduct the research, which are helping them push their agendas in various states. So these consultant agencies hire people who are, say, a lot of them who are starting with their PhD, but they are not very sure. A couple of them want to earn side money meanwhile, along with writing their PhD. And then a few of them are there who want to actually work in the political space, who want to get to the real India's raw data. So that is another aspect. However, I've also seen that segment, it really tires you out. Like before the elections, there's no Saturday, Sunday, there are no timings, and it's on contract basis. Once that particular election segment is done, say Karnataka elections happen, the team which was working there, you are actually unemployed for a little while. Then when the next election segment happens, you again technically get re-employed. But then there is no guarantee that because you worked in state A elections, you'll also be a part of the team which is conducting, research and data and backing up that party for state B elections as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that space. But I feel like that space is hiring more people. So that is one area where you can learn how to do the research, and they also help you in terms of data collection, which I think is very basic for any kind of research at all. So that's pretty much what I have to share. But I would just say that if you guys, any of you, are thinking of going for a PhD, just think it through. It's not about this year. It's going to be your next 4, 5, 6 years. Or I'd say just take a leap of faith, like I did, and then figure it out. If you don't get it, you don't get it. That's also okay. It's fine to leave something because you're not liking it or it's not your cup of tea. And there's no compulsion that because you took something up, you have to wrap it up. You can also let things go. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Anandita, for indulging us in your experience, and it was very quite amazing to listen to you. With this, we are done with our presentation. So the floor is now open for all the questions. If any of the participants have any questions, please feel free to raise your hands in the chat, or you can write it in the chat box. If you are not comfortable with asking on your own, you can send it directly to me as well. I can ask you questions. So we'll wait for a few minutes and see. Whoever has a question, just let me know.
Sorry, I'm kind of taking this space to speak here. But guys, even if you're thinking that my question is very basic or simple, or maybe you find your question stupid, just put it out, because honestly, no question is stupid. You don't know how many people would be wanting to probably ask the same question. So please don't hesitate in asking any question at all.
Okay, so to start the discussion, yes, we have a question from Manu Dilip. I think it says, I'm currently doing my bachelor's in social work. I like research. But I don't like being a teacher. So, to the panelists, please go ahead and we can answer Manu Dilip. Whoever wanna go ahead out of three of you.
May I?
Yeah, Ananta, please go ahead.
So I just want to say that because you're doing your bachelor's in social work, it's made you realize that research is on the social aspect, but also there could be different aspects to research. It could be more focused on economics, it could be more focused on, like I said, the political part. And if you don't like being a teacher, it's absolutely okay, sir. You can obviously explore other options, because when it comes to research, like I said, you have media, you have the NGO space, you have various private organizations. In fact, even in think tanks, there are think tanks which may be small in nature, but they're a part of the think tank circle. So I feel like once you want to do research in a particular space, it doesn't matter if you start with a smaller organization, but a smaller organization will at least help you set your foot in the industry. From there, you can expand looking at your own preferences. So research has very many aspects, and for social work, you also have corporates who are doing their corporate social responsibility, under which they end up doing a lot of social research data collection focused one. So you could also look at that perhaps.
Any Sameera or Nicole, do you guys want to add something to it? Or we
Um,
can move ahead to next question. Yeah,
yeah, I
Nicole,
mean,
please go
it's
ahead.
just there's a lot of opportunities in the non-teaching space when you're doing research. So I mean, I think this is like there's no issue at all. Like, there are a lot of opportunities. So if not teaching, completely fine. Like Anandita said, there are a lot of organizations looking for researchers. Um, so yeah.
Uh, okay, so we will go back to Manu Dilip again. I think, another question, but before that, we'll take a question from Vijay Pal, who's raising hands. Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and then ask the question to the panel.
Are you audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, I am working with government of India, and I know very well that these engagements of consultants are generally on contract basis. Though government departments hire these consultants for 1 year,
Hmm.
and that is a temporary employment in that sense. How do these think tanks employ the people? Is it a contract, or what is their terms and conditions of employment? That was my simple question.
Thank you so much for your question. Anita, I think the question is to you. Could you please want to address it?
So हेलो विजय सर आई वुड जस्ट लाइक टू से कि आप जो कह रहे हैं कि कंसल्टेंट वाला पोजीशन डेफिनेटली इट्स कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल अक्रॉस ऑल मिनिस्ट्रीज, सबके लिए कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल है. बट आई हैव a friend who's like been working there for a long while now. Actually होता क्या है, they keep the position contractual because if they call you a permanent employee, there are a lot of financial benefits you would be eligible to towards the end of your employment, say when you retire. And that is not the kind of money that government is okay putting into, say, your pensions, etc. So that is one of the main reasons why they keep it contractual for 1 year. If it's contractual for 1 year, that does not in practical term means कि 1 साल के बाद निकाल देंगे. I know people जिनके contract साल दर साल renew होते रहे हैं, and for 7-8 years they've been there. It actually helps you set your feet in the industry and say move to the next organization. I also would not suggest if you're working in ministry as consultant, you stay there. I think it's a great stepping stone, but only a stepping stone. You should of course move next. For policy related think tank जो आप कह रहे हैं, say for my own, IDSA has its own website where it comes out with vacancies. They also have a LinkedIn page in which they put out that XYZ position, so many vacancies, and you have to send in, like they have a proper link right there on the website saying you can download the form here and submit it on this particular website. They're asking for your basic details They'll ask you for a reference letter. They'll ask you for your CV. And on the basis of your CV, they will shortlist you for interviews. There is one round of interview, which is usually taken by the Director General, Deputy Director General, and the position which they are looking for, usse related jo senior researchers wahan hai, wo log bhi, they are on board. And after your interview, you get to know if you're in or not. That is how usually think tanks take people in. But there are also a couple of private space think tanks where I have known that if they come across somebody and they realize the person has the skill set, even if you have not applied for a job there, a person in a senior position could always offer you the job knowing that you are a fit for the category. तो private think tank spaces के अंदर मैंने ये भी देखा है that because of networking, because of being out there, when people know you, कई बारी आपको दूसरे लोग भी job offer कर जाते हैं जो शायद आप खुद approach करने का सोच ही नहीं रहे थे. So there I would say networking is very important in the policy space, especially think tank. Thank you.
Yeah, so Manu Dilip also had a question that there might be suffering. I don't know if it's he or she, so I don't know how to address it. I am just gonna say he for now. Says that I have a learning disability regarding maths. So would it be an obstacle in working? I think the question was connected to the previous question where saying that don't like being a teacher. So would that be an obstacle in working in other sectors in social work probably?
Yeah, so I'll just take that. I mean, like, yeah, like I said, math can be a slightly daunting subject, but there are a lot of researchers who who are not comfortable with math, still doing great research. I think probably more on the qualitative side of like research. Let's say, I mean, if when you're they'll probably be doing a lot of research along on interviews, cases, things like that. So even if you're not very comfortable with math, it is not it's not a big obstacle. It'll probably determine what kind of research you will be doing. And instead of quantitative research, you'll probably be more inclined towards qualitative research. And the second thing is, I mean, even if you need to do like basic quantitative research, it is not very difficult to pick up. Like I said, it just depends on like some good learning material, and somebody to help you, somebody like a good teacher. 'Cause the thing is, I mean, the math in research is not any BA level mathematics. There's no real analysis, or there's no major algebra, there's no theoretical math and all. It's just mostly statistics, which is something that you can pick it up with some time, with some practice. Let's say if you are working as part of a research organization, after your first 1 or 2 research projects, you'll become an expert in this or in statistical math. So not a big issue at all.
Thanks, Nicole, for sharing that out.
Kanchan, if I just could add to that, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not a speaker, but if I could just add to that, also if it's like a disability per se, it's not just about not being able to cope with maths, but also if it's just a disability on your end, um, it's understandable. And as Nicole mentioned, then if you're talking in with regards to the net paper, then you could probably shift your focus to other sections and focus more on them, because maths in itself, it effectively would be like a 10 or 15 odd questions which would be based on maths, and you could leave those out and rather focus all your attention on the other sections, and that should be okay. But the second bit of it, if you're talking in the workspace scenario, that probably looking for job opportunities in research and academia, which does not rely particularly on math skills. And that's totally possible, because as Anandita also shared, and I think if Anandita wants to respond to this, that there are roles that do not require you to engage with maths actually in a big way at all. So you will be working, and then you also work with a team So they can do if there anything related to working with numbers or statistics, they can take up that role, and your work could be more related to analysis and writing bit. So there is also differentiation of roles in organization. Roles are specialized. So you can choose roles where you do not involve much work with maths, and that is a real possibility when you're working in research and policy space, where you are not working with maths primarily. So I don't think that should be a problem. If any of the speakers want to add or Kanchan wants to add to it, just wanted to flag this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
may I add something?
yeah, please, Anandita, go ahead.
So frankly, at my end, I left maths after 10th standard. I was in net paper, I was struggling to figure out how do you divide or multiply a fraction. All right, so I was that bad. And I'm being very frank here, but I still managed to somehow crack that paper. So if I can do it, I am sure anybody could do it. It's like they say, you can leave out that little bit of math and focus on the other aspect. And in the policy space, amongst the think tanks, I have not seen anybody really work on the math aspect at all because it's very qualitative. It's not the kind of research we are taught in India is not quantitative in the first place. Also, if we are talking about, say, corporates, or we're talking about various, NGOs, or various organizations which are doing social work related research, there are certain tools or certain applications that they expect you to know. So even if you do not know math, it works. But the tools that they are using for research, or some applications they are using for research, if you could learn that or even learn that on the job, that would also do. So I don't think maths should be an obstacle for you in social science research.
Yeah, and just want to add that in the paper one that Nicole was talking about, math is just one of 10 subjects. So there are like 10 subjects that cover 50 questions. So one question with each section. So math will have only 5 questions. So it can, like, sometimes they might change a little bit, but generally that's the pattern. So it should not be a hurdle. You can leave math out and work out another thing. I just want to flag this to all the attendees here that Nicole has shared some information regarding the abroad PhD application. So you can look at it in the comment section, and then if you are interested, then maybe we can have future sessions about it later. But yeah, we have few more questions in the comment section. So I'm just gonna read out if there is anything.
Um, just one thing to add regarding the math part. Sometimes, I mean, the thing about math is you just need to understand why you're using it, or why it needs to be used. Like once you understand the point of it, it'll probably get much easier. So, like, if you work in a research organization, if you understand, like, you're using this for like a particular reason, you will pick it up on the go very easily.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, for that. Just want to add one more question from my side to the panel, and maybe our attendants would also want to know about it. That what is the PhD funding scenario in India? Like how they are funded, how much they are funded, if you guys would like to talk about it.
Um, yeah, so PhD funding in India it's quite dismal. Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie about that. One of the best options is the best option is basically if you can clear your JRF exam. So the UGC NET JRF happens twice a year. So if you can clear the JRF, the Junior Research Fellowship exam, um, so then the UGC guarantees, like, 5 years of funding, which can go towards your MPhil, or you can go towards your PhD. There are also other funding. I think single girl child, I think, is a scholarship. I think there are there are some small scholarships, but your JRF would probably be the best bet. Like as also mentioned, IITs. I think if all PhD researchers, I think, get like funding that's the same as a JRF level. It's also quite interesting because private universities also give salaries or funding on similar levels to the JRF. So, like, let's say some universities like I think Shiv Nadar, Ashoka, I think some of them they actually give money at the same rate as JRF. So yeah, that's about funding mostly.
Okay. Any like Anandita, Sameera, would you like want to add something to it?
So I mean, I don't know a lot about PhD because, but I usually what I know is about know is that the PhD candidates in IT Bombay are not, even though they get in through JRF, are not usually paid JRF because it's irregular in nature, but they're paid in teaching assistantships, which is regular, and I mean, the professors expect some kind of work hours for their coursework. I mean, maybe it's like being a teaching assistant, and yeah, that's what how it works in IT Bombay, at least, but not with a full clarity. So.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole and Sameera, for this.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
1 second. There's also some non-net stipends. So even if you do not have JRF, if you're a PhD student, you get stipends. I think some central universities give around 8,000 per month. In Ambedkar, they give you 16,000 per month. So it is not a lot of money, but it still goes a long way. So I think other central universities also probably might give stipends, which won't be at the level of a JRF, but will still help. I mean, like, if you don't have like living expenses, because if you're living in hostels, like if you're not living outside, so hostels also help a lot.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um, yeah.
but Nicole just spoke about is when I remember we were in JNU, we used to get for PhD 5,000 a month till your research proposal is not passed. But when your research proposal gets like passed, then that 5,000 becomes 8,000.
Yeah.
But you get one scholarship of government at a time. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
with that, I think I would also add that there are other scholarships that the government provides to categories. So there are national scholarship for OBC, national scholarship for ST, and national scholarship for SC. I think I'm not. Yeah. So those are scholarships. They are equal to GRF, but you like there is some paperwork involved. You have to apply for it and be selected for it. So, but it doesn't start immediately after your PhD. It starts after you have already been into PhD and applied for it through your center or through a school. So those few scholarships are also available for PhDs. Okay, if anyone else have any more questions, then we can continue, or we will have come to an end of this discussion. Okay, if anyone has any question, just let me know, text me, or I will conclude this session. So before doing that, I would really want to thank our panelists for staying with us, for giving us your time, and most importantly, sharing your ideas, your opinions, your experiences. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Sameera. Thank you, Anandita. Thank you all very much for being here. And more importantly, thanking our participants for being here, for participating in this initiative.